Title this Truman Part II. Truman Part II. Where we left off, we were just talking about the Truman Doctrine. The Truman Doctrine was going to be the foreign policy for America basically from 1947, and really before that, that's when it became official, to really 1990, okay, and even after that. Just to review, the Greek revolutionaries supported by communists attempted to seize Greece in 1947. Soviets demanded Turkey because they wanted a piece of the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Truman says it must be the policy of the United States to support free peoples who are resisting attempted subjugation or conquest by armed minorities or by outside pressures. So the U.S. will send military equipment, supplies, and advisors, quote, air quotes, to Greece and Turkey. Okay, Greece will put down the rebellion, and Turkey resisted those Soviet demands. And this is basically how we're going to deal with the spread of communism, for the next 50 or 40 years or so. Okay, those advisors are going to be important. We'll talk more about those guys later. We don't want to go head to head with the Soviets. We don't want World War III, especially right here. But we will stand our ground, and we will stop any more advancement by any communist forces. Okay? Now, to do that, we want to, and here's a great political cartoon. Here's Stalin. Okay? Here's Western Europe begging for our help. Here's Uncle Sam sitting down, and that's how we picture Stalin there. Probably our best weapon against the Soviets at this point, without going head-to-head and fighting, is the almighty dollar. Okay, George Marshall, there he is, was the Secretary of State, and he is going to offer American financial aid to the nations of Europe to aid in their recovery from the destruction of World War II. The plan will last 4 years. It will give them over $15 billion. Okay, here are all the countries that we gave money to. And Spain is not in there because, remember, they have a dictatorship in Francisco Franco. But you can see this is also about the line of communism. Okay? Look what we gave Britain. Look what we gave France. Look what we gave Germany, or our half of Germany, Italy. Okay? $15 billion. We will help European countries help themselves. We're not going to send our military over, but we will help them help themselves. We wanted to fight hunger. We wanted to fight poverty. We wanted to get their governments back on their feet, because as history has taught us, when there is chaos, that leads to the rise of dictators, or in this case, what we're feeling is communism, or what we're fearing is communism. Okay, the plans helped slow the communist advance, and also reduce unemployment, raising the living standards of people, helping to restore political and economic stability. That's what we are after. Okay, a great example of this is called Operation Vittles. Also, the Berlin airlift. Basically, what we were doing here is we were going to aid Berlin. Remember, Berlin is actually, if you look on this map, Berlin is about right here behind those communist lines, also called the Iron Curtain. And here you go, here's Stalin, blocks it off. So we can't bring any trucks in here. So we decide to drop supplies in by the air, called the Berlin airlift. Operation Vittles, bringing those people food, supplies, whatever. And this is where I believed I already mentioned this to you. We actually had a pilot that was dropping chocolate bars to the kids in Berlin. a practice that is still going on today when we take chocolate to kids in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I've told you about that stuff. The kids called him the candy bomber or the chocolate pilot because he would drop those. Eventually he'll learn to drop them with a parachute on him instead of hitting a kid in the forehead with a chocolate bar. But that was part of that. Okay, and that is a great cartoon of the Berlin airlift right there. Now, NATO. This will be established in 1949. NATO would be made up of 9 European nations: Belgium, Denmark, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Great Britain, and of course the United States, Canada, and Iceland. Okay, and it's a defensive pact. So here we are, 4 years after World War II ended, and we're already choosing sides for the next one. The purpose of the treaty was to protect the people that signed this pact against possible Russian aggression. They agreed that an attack on one would be an attack on all. They pledged to take any action necessary to maintain the security of the North Atlantic area. Once again, the U.S. abandoned its traditional policy of neutrality in a time of peace. So we're going to look away from neutrality. We're going to look away from isolationism, and we are going to be very active, okay, during this time. General Eisenhower was the first head of NATO. His title was the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe. In 1952, Greece and Turkey will become NATO members, extending the pact into the eastern Mediterranean. To counter this, Russia organized its own alliance of their satellite states called the Warsaw Pact. Okay, that will be made up of the USSR, Soviets, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, Albania, and East Germany. Okay, so here it is, the East versus the West. You can see how it's broken down here. There is that line. We'll call that the Iron Curtain. Okay, that is basically how it's going to be until the 90s. And it's going to be all this maneuvering over that. There's the Iron Curtain, okay? And we come up with that containment policy, the Truman Doctrine. We will stop the spread of communism. And this is a great depiction of what the Cold War was. It's a chess game. It's you make a move, we're going to counter that move, okay? And you can see the pieces here. Here is the Atlantic Pact, or the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, with Eisenhower's face on it. Here's the Berlin airlift. Here's the Berlin blockade. Okay. Here is the Eastern Bloc. So that's what we're looking at. And that's how it's going to be. That's Truman and that's Stalin. Okay. So that's what's going to dominate our foreign policy for quite some time. There's also, in all this, there's an assassination attempt. This is kind of cool. This is the inside of the White House. Okay, it was the White House, being that old, was kind of falling apart. A piano leg actually went through the White House floor, and so Truman was actually staying here, called the Blair House. Okay. And as they're gutting the White House, he's going to be here. During this time, 2 Puerto Rican nationalists, Oscar Collazo and Griselio Terrasola, attempted to kill President Truman. And their plan was just to barge into the Blair House and shoot their way through to get to Truman. They wanted to call attention on the Puerto Rican independence movement. And they almost got in. Their plan was just to shoot their way in. Gun battle between the two and White House policemen and Secret Service broke up. One wounded policeman fired one shot into Torosolo's head. The officer would later die. His name was Leslie Caulfield, Coffelt, Leslie Caulfield. Collazo actually reaches the steps of the Blair House before collapsing. Truman was actually napping upstairs, and during all this, wakes up and sticks his head out the window. Yeah, that's smart. Till he's tackled. Collazo was sentenced to death, but 1 week before his execution, Truman commuted the sentence to life in prison, and actually President Carter will commute the life sentence in 1979, and he's actually freed. And he'll go on back to Puerto Rico, where he'll die at the age of 80. So, interesting piece of information there. Post-war, okay, lots of problems. Okay, we saw the same thing after World War I. Housing. We have a baby boom going on right now during this time period. Soldiers return. They made love, not war. And we see the baby boom. Between 1946 and 1964, baby births rose dramatically. There were now shortage of homes. We start to see these mass production of homes, cookie-cutter homes during that time. You can look around town and see some of these places. The homes are smaller homes, but most of them look very similar. The area behind Frickers and those places. Those are example of those mass-produced homes at the time, just to give people a place to live. Inflation was a huge problem. Everybody was buying now that the government controls were lifted and prices soar. Food actually goes up 25%, which is quite a bit. Labor. Okay, the strikes are over. Remember, they put a ban on those strikes. So now the people want to get paid. So higher wages. People wanted that. Problems with railroad and coal miner strikes are now popping up. Labor demanded higher pay to keep up with the rising costs of living. Also, the point system, which determined how and when the soldiers came home. How they rotated home was based on their experience during the war. Can't have all the troops come home at the same time, or you'll have a repeat of World War I, where everybody came home and there are no jobs. So they put this point system in play, which is actually smart, although you can understand why people would be upset about that. The Taft-Hartley Act. Okay, law passed over Truman's veto. Truman actually vetoes this, and aimed to remove certain labor abuses to curb the power of unions. Basically, it said you had to have a 60-day cool-off period before an employer or employee could end a contract. A strike could only take place after the union gives 60 days notice, thus providing that cool-off period. So hopefully at that point they could work things out. If the strike threatened national security, the president could obtain a court injunction postponing the strike for another 80 days. So this took a lot of power away from those unions. Unions could not support political campaigns. That's not true anymore. Management could seek injunctions in times of strikes. So basically, it was very controversial because it took too much power away from the unions, or that's what people believed. Okay, it eliminated closed shops. For instance, like Kroger's. Okay, I don't know if you knew that. Kroger's, you have to be part of the union. The GI Bill was created, or the GI Bill of Rights. Okay, and basically it made it very appealing for people to be in the military. Government loans, businesses, farms, homes, you get better rates on those. Pension and hospital care, the VA, we talked about that. And education. Think about those of you that are looking into the military. One of the biggest things is they'll pay for your school. Well, that's huge, huge. So it became appealing to be in the military. And it's because of these things today is why we have a 100% volunteer military. In the 48 election, Republican governor of New York, Thomas Dewey, runs, becomes a very dirty campaign. The Democrats have Truman, but the party's kind of split, okay? There's also the Southern Democrats, so they call themselves the Dixiecrats, wanted Strom Thurmond. The Progressives were looking at Henry Wallace. And the polls are saying that Dewey's going to win by a landslide. Okay, here's a cartoon. What's the use of going through the election? That's Dewey. Right there is Truman. Poll, Dewey given 27 states. Dewey to get 30 states. This came out, and everybody said that Dewey won. Here's Truman holding the newspaper. Dewey defeats Truman. The results were wrong, okay? Truman carried 28 states. That's 303 electoral votes. Dewey carried 16 states, 189 electoral votes. So, big mistake that was made, okay? And he's going to basically, his president, or his next term will be called the Fair Deal. And it basically extends the New Deal, okay? It's a comprehensive list of social and economic reforms. Most of his Fair Deal programs was opposed by the Congress. Many of the things were rejected as far as a national health insurance plan, which we are seeing now, Obamacare, federal aid to education, civil rights programs to eliminate racial discrimination and segregation. Those were all rejected. Okay, but what did get passed was Social Security benefits were extended, a minimum wage, a higher minimum wage, and increased federal funding for the TVA and farmers. Okay, several housing acts and federal insurance protecting bank accounts up to $10,000, which now it's I think it's $200,000. So those are some of the things that he did get passed. So he will extend the New Deal. Okay, and we'll get into a little bit more of his presidency with the next lecture, starting with the Korean War. That is all. Stay classy, Van Dale.